What's up? See y'all made it. So y'all ready? Welcome to Tales from the Block.
This happened when I was working the closing shift at a Starbucks just off the freeway. One of those weird locations where everything else around is already shut down by 10. It was about 11:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. The lights inside were dimmed, machines cleaned, and chairs stacked. I was the only one left, waiting to lock up and run home. Suddenly, I heard the low rumble of an engine. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the drive-thru. I figured it was someone running late, maybe a trucker or a road trip couple. But the windows of the car were pitch black, like illegal black tint, and the engine stayed running with no movement. It stayed like that for a few seconds, and I thought I should serve this person and call it a day. "Welcome to Starbucks. How can I help you?" I asked politely. After a pause, the speaker crackled. "One tall caramel bloodbath." It didn't register at first. I actually laughed. "I think you meant caramel macchiato, right?" Silence. No answer. Only a faint, rhythmic breathing through the speaker could be heard. I thought for a while and figured it was probably some teenager messing around. I waited for the SUV to go away, just like it came. But it didn't. It just idled. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. But the car was still there. I turned off the headset and tried to focus on finishing up, but every few seconds I'd glance at the drive-thru camera. The SUV never moved. No door opened, no window rolled down, just the purr of the engine lingered. By the time half an hour passed, I was genuinely freaked out. I decided to go outside and tell them we were closed. I stepped out into the parking lot, the cool air hitting me like a wall. I approached slowly. My nerves were spiking. As I got closer to the car, I noticed something on the glass. At first, I thought they were smudges, but then I realized what I was looking at. Bloody handprints smeared across the inside of every window. The back door window had the maximum amount of handprints. They looked like small hands, like a woman's, and some of the prints had dragged down. I was trying to make sense of all of that when all of a sudden, the SUV's tailgate popped open with a heavy thud. I immediately jumped back. My eyes went wide in shock and fear. I could feel the veins in my head boil up. There was a woman, bound in zip ties, duct tape across her face. Her body was covered in bruises. Her hands had no fingers. Her mouth was open in a scream, and her tongue had been cut out. She looked at me, eyes wide, tears streaming down her face. Never in my worst nightmare did I expect to come across a sight like that. She tried to say something, but the SUV's driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out. He was massive. He wore a long, dirty coat. His face, I'll never forget that face. He had a real human face stitched to his skin. Blood was streaming down his neck because of the poor surgery he performed on himself. You could literally see the seams. The lips were jagged and too wide. The eyes were black holes behind thin slits. He screamed at me, "Where's my order?" Before I could react, he grabbed my collar and yanked me toward the drive-thru window. I tried to fight back, but he slammed my head against the brick wall. Stars exploded in my vision. He shoved my face into the window, trying to force it through the narrow opening like he was trying to crush me between steel and glass. I used every ounce of panic-fueled strength I had to twist sideways and wriggle halfway inside. I got in somehow, grabbed the window lever and tried to close it when he made another attempt to grab me. But this time, I trapped his arm between the frame. He screamed in rage. "What are you doing? Let me go! You don't know who you're messing with! I'm dialing 911!" His hand was stuck, fingers jerking wildly, nails scratching the walls. He was putting all of his effort into freeing himself, but it all went in vain. I backed away and grabbed my phone, locking eyes with him as I talked to the emergency dispatcher. He was snarling, spitting through the window. "You're siding with the wrong one! She's not the victim! I am! She's the one who cheated on me! Come on, just let me go so I can explain!" You can explain everything to the cops. I backed farther into the store, waiting for sirens. I didn't take my eyes off him. When the cops arrived 10 minutes later, they had to tase him to get him off the window. I watched from his side as they pulled him down and wrestled him to the ground. The woman in the trunk, his wife, was barely conscious, but alive. They rushed her to the hospital. Later that night, a detective gave me the details. The man had been on the run for 3 days. He'd beaten his wife nearly to death, cut out her tongue, and severed her fingers so she couldn't use a phone. He was planning to dump her body in a secluded area out of state. But I don't understand why he decided to make one final stop at Starbucks. The whole time he sat outside, she was in the trunk, bleeding, broken, still somehow alive. And that stupid joke, caramel bloodbath, that was an inside joke between him and his wife. A silly joke she used to tell during the Halloween season. He wanted her to hear it one last time before he finished the job. I quit Starbucks a week later. I can't look at an SUV the same way anymore, and I don't work alone at night. Not ever again. So this happened about 7 months ago, and I'm only talking about it now because I'm still trying to wrap my head around what really went down. I just started an OnlyFans. Nothing crazy, just lingerie and suggestive stuff. It was fun. I was getting attention, compliments, and yeah, the money was nice. I was in a long-term relationship with this guy named Reed. We'd been dating for almost 2 years. From the second I told him I started the page, he was unhappy about it. He'd be like, "This isn't you. You don't need validation from randoms." He even gave me warnings like everything bad was going to happen because of me using OnlyFans. One day some creep is going to show up at our door. He kept calling it a mistake, but I brushed it off. I wasn't posting my address or anything. Plus, it's 2025. Girls are allowed to feel themselves online, right? Anyway, one night we were driving back from my friend's birthday party, and we stopped at this old stranded gas station off the highway. It was past midnight. I stayed in the car while Reed went inside to grab an energy drink and some smokes. I was on my phone, scrolling through DMs. A lot of it was trash, but I had a few loyal subs who were sweet. I was totally engrossed in it, so I didn't notice someone was watching me. When I looked up, I nearly screamed. A man was standing right outside my window, only inches away. He was filthy. He wore these mud-caked pants, had a dreadlock beard, and cracked lips. He looked completely gone mentally. I instinctively locked the doors. He started tapping on the window. Tap, tap, tap. I yelled, but he just smiled. And then he took out his phone and showed me my OnlyFans page. A feeling of dread rushed down my spine. My eyes kept searching for Reed, begging him to be back as soon as possible. The crazy guy started rambling. "It's really you, the angel from the screen. Can I touch your hair? Please, just one touch." I screamed and honked the horn. The man brushed his dirty hands on the window like he was imagining how it would be to touch me. "I knew you'd be prettier in person." I was on the verge of crying when Reed sprinted out of the store, and I swear I've never seen him move that fast. He tackled the guy in the middle of the parking lot and punched him. I watched him knock 3 teeth out of that guy. We got in the car and sped off. I told him everything while sobbing like a 9-year-old. Reed was breathing heavily, knuckles bleeding. "See? I told you this would happen." That night, I deleted my OnlyFans. I didn't even hesitate. I felt exposed and extremely violated, like I had been shoved into a trash can. I began questioning my self-worth. It was the worst night ever. For weeks, I kept thinking back to that man's eyes, how he looked like he truly knew me, how he begged for a touch like he thought I was real-life property. I couldn't sleep. I jumped every time someone walked by the apartment. Reed took care of me, but kept reminding me every day how he saved me. He'd constantly say, "Imagine if I hadn't come out. What would have happened? Now you understand why I didn't want you doing that stuff." And honestly, I felt grateful. Like, yeah, he was right. Maybe I had invited danger. A month or so later, Reed was at work, and I was cleaning out our junk drawer looking for a spare charger cable. I was bored, organizing old receipts and junk mail. Suddenly, I found an old beat-up prepaid flip phone. It was hidden under expired coupons and a dead flashlight. I don't know why I opened it. I figured it was from forever ago. But when I turned it on, it still had charge. And there were messages. Not many, just like 5, all from the same number. No name, just texts. One caught my eye right away. It said, "Are you sure this is just to scare her? I don't want any cops on my ass." My heart dropped. Another one said, "Cash App didn't go through. Need 50 more for bus fare." I kept scrolling, hand legit shaking, and then I saw the message that made me feel sick. "Wait until she's alone. Show her the OnlyFans page. Just scare her a little. Make it real. I need her to quit." My mouth went dry. It was dated 2 days before the gas station incident. I sat there in total silence, staring at that line. Make it real. That psycho in the parking lot, he wasn't some obsessed subscriber. He was sent. My boyfriend Reed hired him. I went cold all over. I couldn't breathe. I kept asking myself, why? Why would someone do that to the person they love? And the worst part? Reed played the hero. He staged the entire situation to scare me into deleting my account, and then he rescued me from the very scenario he created. He staged the whole thing so that he could say later, "I told you so." I packed my stuff the next morning and left while he was at work. I didn't confront him. I didn't even give him closure. I went full ghost mode. I changed numbers and blocked him on everything. I still think about what would have happened if that man had gone too far. If Reed hadn't saved me in time, if his plan had spiraled. I haven't posted anything online since, not even on IG, and I've been in therapy trying to untangle all this twisted crap thrown my way. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. That man at the gas station, he knew my name, but he also said something I can't forget. He said I'd be prettier in person. I wonder if he said that to himself or Reed told him to say that. It terrifies me to think that the real stalker wasn't the man at the window. It was the one sleeping in my bed. It happened during one of the worst storms I've ever driven through in my life. I was working late that night, trying to squeeze in one more Uber Eats delivery before heading home. The app rerouted me down a back road somewhere near rural Pennsylvania. No street lights, barely any signal, just miles of cracked asphalt and thick trees clawing at the sides. The rain started coming down sideways, and thunder was booming so loud it felt like it was rattling my bones. I could barely see through the windshield, even with the wipers going full blast. When the GPS froze and the phone blinked off, I panicked and looked for shelter to pull over and wait it out. That's when I saw a small, rotting wooden structure just off the road. It looked like a shed, maybe a barn. I didn't care. I pulled in beside it, killed the engine, and ran through the storm toward the only dry spot for miles. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was off. The smell of wet hay, mold, and something else, like decay, hit my nostrils. The air felt thick, almost difficult to breathe. The inside of the shed was dark except for the occasional flicker of lightning slicing through the gaps in the wood. I flicked my lighter to see around a little more clearly, and I almost had a heart attack. Someone was inside the barn already. "Who's there?" An old woman hunched over in the corner, scattering handfuls of moldy oats on the dirt floor. She wore a ripped shawl over her shoulders, soaked and clinging to her skin. Her gray hair hung in tangled ropes down her back. I nearly jumped. "Sorry," I said. "I'm just taking shelter for a few minutes. I'll leave once the rain eases up." She didn't look at me. She just kept mumbling.
"The horses hate going hungry."
I glanced around. The shed was empty. No animals, no stalls, no hay bales. But the floor was covered in deep, fresh-looking hoof prints. Some still had water pooling in them, like they'd been made just minutes ago. But there were no horses. I told myself maybe this woman was just mentally unwell, maybe a squatter. I decided to stay near the entrance and not get involved. That's when she started coughing. not a normal cough, something wet and gagging. She dropped to her knees, clutching her throat. Ma'am? I took a step forward, unsure what to do. Are you feeling all right? She continued coughing. She could barely speak. Just when I thought she was going to faint, she started pulling something from her mouth. It was long, black hair, strand after strand, like it had been stuffed deep inside her throat. Her eyes welled up with tears as she gagged and whispered,
They said I was possessed. I was just sick.
Her body convulsed once, twice, then everything stopped. She slowly turned her head toward me, and I swear to God her eyes rolled back completely white, and her voice, it wasn't hers anymore. It was as if something else was speaking within her.
You brought them back.
Her jaw slowly stretched to a wide hollow, and I screamed into the night. The shed groaned as thunder cracked overhead. I didn't wait to understand what she meant. I turned and sprinted into the storm, not even looking back. I jumped in my car, fumbled with my keys, and peeled off that property like my life depended on it. It probably did. Even after getting home, I couldn't shake it. The voice, the hair, the hoof prints. I kept thinking about what she said.
They said I was possessed.
I spent half the night looking it up. The shed, I learned, was part of an abandoned property tied to a story from 1994. A woman had lived there, young, schizophrenic, reportedly hearing voices and harming herself. Her family didn't trust doctors. Instead, they called in a group of rogue priests to perform an exorcism. It got out of hand. They tied her to a wooden beam and beat her with Bibles, starved her, and forced her to drink holy water until she choked. They said she was possessed by demons. She died 3 days later, bruised, broken, and disfigured. There were photos from the police investigation. One of them showed her body. Her face was smeared with moldy oats. After that, no one touched the property. Locals say her spirit still fed the horses. Sometimes, if you got close enough, you would see hoof prints circling the shed, but you would never see any actual horses. They said anyone who heard her say,
The horses are hungry,
would eventually start hearing it too. That line chilled me because she didn't just say it once. When I tried to sleep that night, every time thunder rumbled outside, I swear I heard a dull clop, clop, clop coming from my driveway. The next day, I went to check my car, and there were muddy hoof prints on the hood. I moved apartments within a week, threw out the car, and changed numbers. I don't drive Uber Eats anymore, but occasionally, when it rains, really rains, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and smell oats. Wet, rotting oats. And faintly, just faintly, I'll hear them. Clop, clop. She wasn't feeding imaginary horses. She was keeping them from starving. I work for WWE as part of the production crew. Most people think it's all bright lights, roaring crowds, and fireworks, but someone has to stick around long enough after the fans leave to clean up, pack the gear, and lock up. That someone is often me. This incident happened after a late-night live show in one of the biggest arenas I'd ever worked in. By the time the last semi-truck rolled out, it was well past 1 a.m. The place felt eerie when it was empty. All the noise and energy abruptly ceased, replaced by a silence so heavy that you could hear the lights buzzing above. I was doing my rounds, checking doors, when I heard a distant crying. At first, I brushed it off as my imagination, but a few seconds later, the crying grew louder. It was the voice of a woman. Her sobbing suggested that she was in a lot of pain. I came out into the hallway. At my right, there was no one, but once I looked at my left, I saw her. She was standing in the middle of the hallway, maybe 15 to 20 feet away. The only thing visible on her face was her eyes, wide and still. The rest of her face was covered by a dirty, stained cloth. I thought maybe she was a lost fan or something who got stuck inside. Hey, no need to cry. Do you need help? She tilted her head slightly, then uttered in a muffled voice,
I live here. Down in the basement.
I frowned. What? You mean you live here? In the area? She nodded. I tried to laugh it off, but then controlled myself, thinking she must be mentally unwell. Look, I'll call the cops. They'll help you get somewhere safe, okay? She didn't respond, just kept staring. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I told them there was a trespasser inside the arena and they needed to send someone. But when I looked back up, she was gone. The hallway stood vacant. I tried to tell myself she slipped out through one of the side exits. Still, my intuition kept telling me she's still around. I decided to give it a check to be extra sure. I was almost at the end of the hallway when I heard the sound of running water from the men's washroom. Ma'am, you can't stay here. The officers are on their way. They'll help you, okay? Please come out. But she didn't come out. I had no other choice than to escort her out. The fluorescent lights flickered as I pushed the door open. She was standing at the sink, washing her face. The cloth was crumpled on the counter, and I saw the stains on it were of blood. My eyes darted back to her. Water poured from the faucet, but the drain was clogged, and the sink was filled to the brim. But it wasn't water. It was blood. I staggered back, my stomach flipping, but my eyes locked on her feet. Her toes. My God, they were curled unnaturally against the tile, blackened, swollen, and rotting. I shifted my eyes slowly from her feet to her face. She was just staring at me now, with no cover on her face. It was the most horrible face I've ever seen in my life. Her mouth was stapled shut with pins. The flesh around her lips was torn and swollen, jagged from infection. I fell onto the floor, shaking in fear and disbelief. Ah! Who are you? She stood still for a second, then began to smile. The skin around the staples stretched as she forced her lips into a grin. One by one, the pins started snapping loose, popping out of her flesh with wet, sickening sounds. Blood spilled down her chin as the smile widened far beyond what was human. Her body trembled with each motion, yet her eyes never stopped staring. I couldn't help but lie on the cold floor, drenched in sweat and terror. She kept smiling until the last pin broke free. Then, her mouth gaped wide open, pouring blood as she attempted to laugh. I never screamed louder than I ever had in my life. I finally got up and bolted for the exit. My shoes pounded the arena floor. I didn't dare look back. I swear, I could feel she was following me. I crashed through the lobby doors and nearly slammed into two uniformed cops rushing inside. Gasping for air, I grabbed one of them by the arm, blurting out everything. The woman, the sink full of blood, the staples. The officers exchanged a look, thinking I was mad, but still they went in, guns drawn, while I followed at a shaky distance. We didn't find her in the bathroom, or the hallways, or anywhere else I'd seen her. But when we got to the basement, the part of the arena fans never see, that's when the smell hit us. We found a hidden storage room beneath the wrestling ring area, and inside was a body of a woman. Her mouth had been stapled shut. Her skin was bloated and gray, like she'd been dead for days or weeks. The cops looked shocked. They told me to wait outside while they called for backup. As I stood there, my mind kept replaying the sight of her rotten feet, the way her eyes glared into mine, and that grin splitting wider and wider as the staples tore free. It was later confirmed through an autopsy and investigation that someone killed her and left her body in the basement, thinking no one would ever find her. I can evidently say that whoever is responsible for this brutal murder has no conscience. The way her body was left, hidden under the auditorium, mouth stapled shut so she couldn't scream, tells me someone didn't just kill her, they wanted her silenced forever. And maybe on that night, I didn't see a living woman. Maybe I saw whatever was left of her, whatever refused to stay hidden in that basement. To be a chill sleepover at Nora's house with me and Paige. Her parents were away for the weekend, so she had a comfortable attic room filled with pillows, fairy lights, and scented candles. We were eating popcorn, scrolling TikTok, and laughing at ridiculous memes. Normal Friday night activities. But about midnight, the electricity took off. Nora lighted some candles, and everything seemed spooky. The glow flickered off the walls, and the room became very eerie. We all stared at the flames when Nora said,
"Let's do something creepy."
Like what?
Paige asked.
A seance or something.
We didn't have a Ouija board, and none of us knew how to conduct a proper seance. But then I opened my large mouth. I smirked and asked,
What if we use Snapchat to summon Morwenna? What? Snapchat for planchette? Yeah. I saw this post on Reddit where some people use snaps of a recently dead person to summon his spirit. It totally works.
By doing it on Morwenna? I don't know.
The room froze. Morwenna was a senior at our high school. She perished in a horrific vehicle accident only a month ago. She was driving at 93 miles per hour and used Snapchat's speed filter to prove it. She slammed into a divider, dying instantly. People claimed her head was twisted at an abnormal position, and the worst part? Her phone kept broadcasting for hours.
Some people watched the footage before it was removed. They said you could see her reflection in the window after she died, as if she was still watching.
Not funny.
Paige muttered. However, Nora was already holding up her phone. We were curious and at the same time bored, a poor combo. We sat in a circle. The only sources of light were 2 candles and the glow from our phones. Each of us opened Snapchat and pointed our cameras toward the attic's darkest areas. Shadows spread strangely across the walls. We whispered in unison,
Morwenna, show us here.
We continued like this for a few minutes when Paige let out a gasp.
Guys, my filter is acting up.
We stared at her screen. The dog filter flickered across the empty space behind her. Then it vanished. Then sprang up again. But the ears were too long this time. The tongue was gray. Nora's screen captured a second face. A thin and pale outline lingered behind Paige. Nora turned around.
Nothing's there.
She said hastily, but her voice was trembling. I pointed my camera at the mirror by Nora's bed. It was cracked at the top, only a hairline split, but I swear I saw something move behind my reflection. A thunderous crack echoed throughout the room, and the window sprang open, letting in a gush of wind. Suddenly, my phone snapped its own photo. Nobody touched it. It just snapped. We crowded together, shivering as I opened it. A face could be seen at the mirror, looking down at us, but it was wrong. The eyes were excessively big, and it didn't look human. I dropped my phone.
I'm done. Turn it off. End it.
But before we could do anything, Nora began murmuring. Her voice did not sound right. Rather, she laughed in a deep, guttural voice that came from within. She rocked back and forth. Her eyes had rolled so far back that all we could see was white. Paige grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her.
Nora? Nora, stop!
Nora did not stop. She continued babbling, faster now. Her lips moved, but the noises didn't match, as if her mouth was on hold. Her entire body trembled. We panicked. I blew out the candles. Paige grabbed her phone, turning on the light, thinking if we flash it on Nora, she'll break free from this trance or whatever it was. But it didn't stop. Nora fell to the ground. Her body started to contort at impossible angles. Her bones broke, yet she remained silent and did not scream. Her face, or maybe I should say the face on her face, kept smiling at us while her body moved uncontrollably. Her head struck the floor with a dull thump. We continued. I'll never forget how her body looked, like a puppet with its ropes cut. We phoned her mother and the police. She was rushed to the hospital, and to our shock, she survived. Nora woke up the next day with no recollection of what had happened. She looked pale and unwell. She claimed she felt watched, but brushed it off. And in the doctor's report, not a single fracture or scratch was found on her body. We all promised to never discuss it again. Nobody at school would understand. But 3 days later, we received the news. Nora was found dead in her bedroom. Her mother stated she appeared to have died in the middle of a scream, her face frozen with dread. There was no evidence of a struggle. There was no sign of foul play. It was just her lying there, rigid and chilly. Her phone was found next to her. They said her Snapchat was still open. The camera had been pointing at the ceiling. In the final photo, a face was just apparent among the static. We spotted the same face behind Paige that night. I wish it was the end, but 2 nights ago at 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with a Snapchat notification from Paige. There was no message, just a photograph taken in a dark bedroom focusing on a particular corner, and I could see something standing there watching me. I removed it. I threw my phone across the room, but I continued to hear voices in my sleep. I see glitches on my screen. Sometimes I notice a filter flicker in the air next to me. I don't use Snapchat anymore, but I haven't deleted it either, because deep down I believe she wants that. Maybe none of this would have happened if we let Morwenna rest in peace. Did we just bring her back? Or does she want us to join her wherever she is?
There it is. We made it to the end. For those who made it all the way through, thank you. I appreciate it. And for those who didn't and who couldn't, scary ass.